All right, welcome everybody. Today we are working on the art of mental discipline. And I really think that this topic is one of the most important and most underrated, like not discussed topics that comes into personal development. And I'm going to talk specifically about today. I'm going to give you some skills around there's like three core mental skills that I'm going to go over today. Now, I just want to be clear, there's many more mental skills, but I'm going to go over three today. And I'm also going to start with kind of like sometimes in people's attempt to do mindset work, they actually can make a problem that didn't need to exist. So I'm going to explain that. I'm going to go over the three core mental skills. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my Limitless Wealth program. I have a retreat that's coming up too, so I will mention those things. And so here we are. All right. So what I see, the biggest misconception of mental work is that most people will get to, when they start their personal development work, there's a place where doing mindset work and uncovering limiting beliefs makes such a big difference so fast. And that is a perfect place to be when you really get started in personal development. But generally, when I'm working with people, I'm working with people who this is not their first rodeo. Like I'm helping them scale their business. They've had a mindset coach before, they've been to therapy probably. This isn't the first time looking at their mind. And what ends up happening, I notice, is that sometimes when people see such good results from doing mindset work at the beginning, they think that if they keep digging around in their psyche for problems, that somehow they're going to like break this one last belief and everything's going to come to be. And so what I'll see is people getting stuck digging around in their mind looking for limiting beliefs. And I would actually just love to know in the chat if that's ever happened to any of, like, if I'm talking to the right people, has this ever happened to anybody where you're like, what's like more or less like, where is this belief that keeps the money or the success away from me, right? And what I find that that's actually the problem that actually causes is an overabundance of energy in the mind. So we have a mental body, a physical body, emotional body, an energetic body. And when the mind has too much of our energy, too much of our attention, too much energy in the mind, what ends up happening is one that comes at a cost of the other areas of ourselves. And two, when the mind is overfunded, she's got all the resources she needs for overthinking to be multiple places, like multiple show. She could be in the past, in the future, in the present, and really spread real thin, leaving you very little power in the present to actually make decisions. And I also find that clients with a lot of an overabundance of energy in their mind, they create problems. Their mind creates obstacles. Their mind creates conditions for their success, and the mind will create delays. So again, let me know has this ever happened to anybody? Let me know. All right. Yeah, Kathy said this is definitely yes. Great. Okay, great. Perfect. Okay, love that. This is okay. Sometimes I wonder. All right. So this is nuancy stuff. I'm teaching it kind of in an advanced level here. I'm gonna just preface this. So being able to break a limiting belief, being able to observe your mind, these are core critical skills. But once we know how to do those things, if we're going digging for problems, you're going to find them. If you go digging for problems, you're going to find them. And what sucks is that when you're scaling a business, what ends up happening when you're growing and expanding is your soul, your desires, they want to grow. Your mind loves what's familiar. Your body loves what's familiar. Your emotional body loves what's familiar. And so there's this tension when you're up against the edges of your growth. And this is the place where it's more comfortable to dig around in your psyche looking for problems than it is to outgrow it. All right. So it's just part of the process. It's cool. There's nothing wrong with you if this is happening. But I do want to point out that if you're spending a ton of time in your journal digging for old beliefs and you're in the past looking for old beliefs, that might not be where the problem is. Like you might not be stuck because of that. You might need to expand your emotional range. You might need to look at your strategies, as far as business goes. You might need to be brave. You might need to look at something different to actually be able to transcend that. And the overfunded mind is its own problem, but the solution is to get back into your body. It's a very simple solution. It's to practice getting back into your body. Today, we're going to work on how do we start to use our mind as a tool. right? Because your mind is the best tool that you've got. Your mind has so much creative power, so much choice, so much decision making. It leads your whole energy field. Your thoughts lead, your mind leads your vibration. And most of us have an undisciplined mind that we let run rampant, that we let dig, like the mind also, like I'm going to point something out to you here too. The mind is generally going to look for problems and negativity and things that you don't want because that's part of being alive. The mind's going to be like, well, if we don't have enough resources, like the mind's going to be looking for your safety. All right. And so the fact that you're going to have some attention looking at things that you don't like or that you don't want is just an indication that you're alive, right? And I want to point this out because, again, sometimes women try to solve problems that aren't really problems. They're just natural parts of being a fucking human. And I'm telling you this because honestly, like self-acceptance and gentleness with ourselves is that's another thing that's just so underrated when we're like disciplined. And it's like, dude, cool out, cool out. So the mind, when it's trained properly, the mind can lead your vibration. The mind can construct the reality that you want. The mind can draw the money in. The mind can find the resources. The mind could be open to the opportunities and help you decide, like help you to stay clear and on the path, right? Help you to stay, you're like, oh, I chose this plan, I chose this path. And the mind will be like, because once you start being successful, you could choke and die on the amount of opportunities that will come your way, right? Has anybody experienced that? You start making money, you start, seeing success in your business. And then every time Dick and Harry's like, hey, could you do this? Do you want to join my nonprofit board? Do you want to do this for me? Like, right? I'm like, at least once a week, somebody asks me to teach on something money related that's literally nothing at all what I do, right? Some people be like, you want to come teach kindergartners about money? And I'm like, I literally say the F word like a lot. You should probably, I'm not the lady for that. I'm like barely even nice. Oh my God. You guys, I'm going to tell you something weird. So I had a dream last night that I was watching my two little nieces and five kittens, and I couldn't keep track of them in my dream. In real life, I'm sure I could do it, but they kept escaping from me. Anyways, I shouldn't be teaching kindergarten. That's what I'm dreaming about is losing kittens. All the F words. All right. So we want our mind to be clear. We want our mind to be like, oh, this opportunity is not a fit. You're out of alignment here. Let's stay on let's and when you have a well-disciplined mind, your mind is your cheerleader, your mind is your encourager, your mind can give positive meanings to things or give neutral meanings to things when stuff's going your way. Your mind can be your celebrator. Like when your mind is well trained, it's amazing. When your mind is untrained or too negative, what is that? She's going to be she's going to be spinning. She's going to be exhausting you. She's going to be bothering you. She's going to be shit talking you. She's going to be telling you you're not good enough or what's wrong with your hair or your outfit or why this is never going to work. She's going to be blaming your parents for shit. All right. So we need to learn how to use the mind as a tool. And I can tell you when I teach my clients how to work with their minds and we get their minds to be their cheerleader, their thought leader, their vibration leader, and their mind is trained, this is worth so much money. Like incredible, incredible amounts of money. Right? Like this is why everybody that's successful is telling you, hey, watch your mind. Watch it. Watch where that thing's going. Pay attention. Discipline the mind. But somehow that gets lost in translation to like, let me dig up every past problem I've ever had and dig around looking for limiting beliefs that may or may not even exist. All right. So in Limitless Wealth, Limitless Wealth is my 12-month program. It's for business women who are scaling service-based businesses. And in Limitless Wealth, we do a lot of mindset work. And sometimes we're digging in the psyche to find a belief structure. Sometimes if there is a belief structure or judgment that needs to be, dissolved, we do that work. But more often we're spending our time really focusing on how to use the mind, how to use it, how to get our mind to do the things that we want. It's funny, just yesterday I taught my clients a whole way to help our mind create an experience of something, to create a vibe of something. And I'll teach you guys the same thing in part 3. So Limitless Wealth, I'm going to talk about it for just a second. And then if you want to work together, I'll invite you for a way to get started. So Limitless Wealth is a 12-month program and it's a hybrid. So we do part one-on-one coaching and part individual attention and part like mastermind style group dynamics. And the main goal of Limitless Wealth is to help you to one, we put a strategy in place for you to 10x your business within a few years, right? So 3 years, it depends on your business model. Sometimes clients take a little longer. Sometimes clients can do it real fast. It just depends. It depends. So we put the plan in place for you to 10x your business, which often means looking at your offers, your pricing, your marketing, the literal technical pieces on how do I build a 7-figure business only, and most of my clients come to see me because they don't want to work any harder. They want to have a 4-hour work day. They want to, mother their children, water the plants, have time for hot sex and travel to Jamaica, or anywhere. I don't care where. So anyway, so that's like the result. But the thing where most people don't they look at the wrong thing is they ask how do I do it? How do I get there? And even though that's a great question for a very small amount of time, where that question leads us to a lot of strategy. And the thing is that I've realized is that I've been studying marketing and sales for a long time, and I've seen people be wildly successful with techniques that make no sense, with techniques that make all the sense in the world, with other people's techniques, their strategies, with their own strategies. And really what I notice is it's who you become. It's how you show up. It's who. It's becoming the person who can handle the responsibility, becoming the person who can handle the success, becoming the person who can handle the money, and becoming the person who can hold a really big life and still be enjoying it. So it's more, who do I have to become? And so Limitless Wealth really teaches the kind of personal growth that answers that question. And then of course we make a fuck ton of money. So there's that. And so if that's something that you want to talk to me about, you want to work on, the way that my sales process goes for this is because it's an intimate container, it's a long container, and you get one-on-one access to me, is I always like to do a coaching session first. So, and the reason for this is you want to make sure that you like to be coached by me. I want to make sure that everything jives, that it makes sense, right? This container right now is super intimate. We're just building it up. It's a small container. It's going to be 30 people tops. And so we just want to make sure that everything feels good for everybody, right? And so what I like to offer first is a business building session. So a business building session is we'll put one-on-one time on the calendar, 60 to 90 minutes, and we're going to look at your business model. We're going to put together all the pieces for the 10X strategy, which you'd be surprised is remarkably simple. And then we get into the personal development. So the thing that I like to listen for is where your words are bumping up against your belief structures, or where your emotions are constrained by fear, or where your energy doesn't match the things. And so we put together basically like a two-part plan. So some of it's the strategy, the practical, like literally what do we need to do? And part of it's who do I have to become? And then if we like working together, we want to work together, we talk about that at that point. So that initial strategy session is how to get to work with me. And if you're not scaling a business, but you still want to work with me, you can go ahead and book you can go ahead and either book a free call to talk to me about it, see if we're a good fit. Because I also do some private coaching. All right. So private coaching is one-on-one. So we put together a custom plan. All right. And let me get into my thing now. That was my shameless, happy little sales pitch for you. All right. So the first core skill that we need for the art of mental discipline is the skill of observation. Now, there is a rumor that when you meditate, the goal is to get your mind to be quiet and to empty your mind of all thoughts. Has anybody ever heard that? Has anybody ever heard that little story? Ash has. Okay. And then just out of total curiosity for the ladies here, how many of you have tried that? Your mind won't shut the fuck up. And then you give up after like a couple minutes because it's ultimately frustrating. And has that ever happened? Ash Peterson says yes. All right. So here's the deal. When you first start getting meditating, yeah. All right. Listen, I'm going to just share this with you. I have been regularly meditating, and I mean like maybe not every single day, but maybe some days twice. Like I have a solid meditation practice that started probably in, I would say 2014 is when I started to really figure out how to do it. It took me 10 years to get my mind to shut up. I want to just let that land for a second, because what was I doing the first 10 years? The first 10 years, I was learning to watch my mind. And so the observation of the conscious mind is the first step. So what this means is you could sit with yourself. You could do this while you're washing dishes. You don't need to like sit in an you don't need to do that. But what you need to do is learn to separate the thoughts from you. So you start to observe the thoughts. So you're going to watch your thoughts go by. Now, what this does for you is that you have the seat of the soul is in the body, right? And this is different than the mind. You are not your mind. And so before we really understand that and can separate the being, the higher self, the being, the soul, however we want to put it, from the mind, we will get lost in the thoughts. We will be in the thoughts. And so I'm going to use a metaphor, but it's like, this is like if you were swimming in the ocean. So you're in the ocean and you can get swept away, you can get sucked out, you can get pushed in. If you've ever swam in the ocean, you know that even if you're a good swimmer, the ocean can kick your ass. So this is the first step. The way that you do this is to literally just watch your thoughts go by. From there, you can judge the quality of the thoughts. Like, are these thoughts positive? Are they negative? Are they in the direction that I'm going? Are they in a different direction? Are they making up stories Are they replaying conversations? Like, what's happening here, right? This gives you a lot of information because the conscious thoughts are but if you want the ability to choose a thought, to drop a thought, to redirect the thought, which we're going to get into in the second point here, well, you need to be able to see it, right? This is the literal first skill that we need to have a really good mindset. All right. Now, the second level of observation, so this is more of an intermediate level of observation. So the beginners is to just watch your conscious thoughts. Once you get good at watching your conscious thoughts, then we can start to pay attention a little closer. We can start to pay attention to the relationship between our thoughts and our feelings. So you could start to notice, wow, if I count up all the reasons I'm mad at my husband, I'm ready to get into a fight before I've gotten out of the car. I'm going to just confess a story to you guys because I think it's a little funny. There was a time that I was driving home from work and I made up a story about how my husband was going to have his friends over and how the kitchen was going to be dirty. And I made up this whole story and I got out of my car to get to my house, like literally ready for a fight. Like I was so mad. I got there. The kitchen was perfectly clean. There were no friends over. Mike had started dinner. Everything was fine. And I actually felt like supremely disappointed by this because I was so worked up. Has anybody else ever done that? Anybody? Has anybody? All right. So the second thing that we're going to do is we want to observe the relationship between our thoughts and our feelings, right? So I probably had a 20-minute ride, right? So I had 20 minutes. And by then my feelings were all like, they were screaming, even though nothing happened. I created that whole scenario, that whole experience just in my mind. So we want to start to observe how our mind does this to us. We want to start to pay attention. Oh, what are the rabbit holes? I call it a rabbit hole. It's the same like loop of thoughts that we have, right? And most of us will have a scarcity loop or my business isn't going to work loop, or this is all going to fall apart, or, our little loops are usually based on our fears, right? We want to watch how our mind builds a case for something. We want to watch ourselves experience cognitive bias. Let's just say, for example, there's a lady that I know probably some of you guys have businesses, but let's just say there's a lady in your office, we'll call her Janice. And for whatever reason, you just don't like her. Maybe she did something, maybe she didn't. It doesn't really matter for the sake of this example. But watch yourself build a case for why she's the biggest asshole that ever existed. Just watch it happen. Watch yourself build a case for why this will work or why this won't work. All right, so this is next level observation. And watch the way that you give meaning to things. Like watch the way that you hit a little traffic on your way to your business thing and you're like, oh, this is a bad sign. It means it's not going to work. Or watch the way that you give meaning to experiences. This means something bad's going to happen, or this means that something good's going to happen, right? Because that's a huge way that we turn ourselves off to the good in life. All right, so I'm going to just repeat these real quick. So the first step of observation is the conscious mind. So you're just going to watch your thoughts go by. The second step of observation, like an intermediate level observation, is to observe the relationship between your thoughts and your feelings. The rabbit holes that you typically will go down, like the go-to places your mind goes when left unattended, the way that you build a case toward why why something is, or, we'll build a case. And then the last thing that I have here is meaning giving. So how you give meanings to things. Now, this is an intermediate level. So if you can't observe the conscious mind thoughts going by, these other things are going to be probably a little too hard for you. And so just work on one thing at a time. Now, the third stage of observation is going to be to start to observe the conscious mind. All right. Now, I'm going to point out here that some people are going to be able to observe their subconscious mind on their own, and some people are going to need a practitioner. And if you've never done it before, you probably will need to start with a practitioner, because it can be really hard to see the depths of your ocean. It can be really, really hard to do that on your own if you've never done it before. So, but to observe the conscious mind, we can see that sometimes we have stories that happened way in the past that we will give meaning to, and the meaning has become a belief. All right. So I'm going to give a really tiny example. I, at one point, had a client who figured out when she was a kid, she had some bad things happen. And then she found that there were some gifts in those bad things, right? So she was like, oh, well, this bad thing happened, but it ended up working out okay. And so the meaning that her childhood mind gave her is that something bad has to happen for me to experience something good. All right. So you guys, can everybody see how that tracks? So is that true? No. Do you have to have something bad happen to have something good happen? No. Fuck no. Absolutely not. That was a really old story that had meaning that was still playing out in her life. All right. So a lot of times, we may need to actually, so this is more of like the digging that I said, don't do too much, but sometimes you have to do it. There's a nuance here. All right. But the past example, right? So she's operating on a meaning, on a belief structure. I don't know. She was probably 6 years old when she put that belief structure in. So she didn't have wasn't able to really think it all the way through. Okay. So when we break that belief, her business opens up. Because can you imagine if you believe that everything good means that something bad is going to happen, and now you're going for bigger and bigger good things? Of course, you're going to be fucking terrified. And what you believe to be true is. So can you see why somebody would get stuck there if you believe, all right, well, something bad has to happen for something good to happen, and I want something so good. I want something this big, so good. Well, what does that mean? Something this big is going to happen. Could I even survive it? So this is where sometimes there's like these fallacies, right? Okay. So the next, in social conditioning, we also need to look at our subconscious mind. Sorry, we're observing the subconscious mind. We also need to look at our social conditioning. So when we're little kids, we're learning how to be a human from our parents, from our schools, from our neighborhoods, from our churches, or our religious communities, our like literal community. And oftentimes we're going to pick up a lot of social conditioning. Now, this is just like the social expectations for you in a certain role. Now, for many of us, I don't know how old everybody in this room is, but I'm 41. I just turned 41. So depending on how old you are, your social conditioning is going to be different. So when I work with clients, let's say in their 50s or 60s, they tend to have a little bit more drama around being a woman, what it means to be a woman, right? And then when I look at people, in their 40s, feminism had taken a pretty good root by then. So by the time I was in my upbringing, my mom was saying, you need to get an education. You can't depend on a man, right? Which is a whole other fucking thing, right? And when I look at kids my daughter's age, she's 20, they seem to be less affected by some of these things. And so depending on your age, depending on where you grew up, there's going to be social conditionings. Now, for most of us, if we're going to really grow a 7-figure business, for most of us, that means we have to break those social conditionings down, because the social conditionings that we got as a small child are almost always going to be too small. They're going to be too small for us to hold to the level of success that we want to have, right? So we have to look at those things. And that's another place where we have to be able to observe these things to be able to move through them. Judgments is another place. I'm going to tell you guys a story about judgments. So I had a client once, and so she comes to see me, and she was successful. Not financially. Financially, she was making actually so little money in her business. She came to see me and she was like, I either need to learn how to make money in this business, or I need to get a job, because I'm making so little money that I can't eat food. Like I can't pay my rent. I can't do these things. And I'm almost, she had some, she had some savings. And she was like, I'm almost out of savings. And so this woman was able to fill a room. She was selling tons of like really low ticket offers, like $20 here. And so I was like, uh, the math doesn't math. Your business model won't work. Because I said, for you to be able to make enough money to live off of a $20 thing, you would need to be selling so many of these things. You would need traffic. You would need to be buying ads. But I'm like, you're not charging enough to pay for the ads, and we have to eat food, right? So we restructured her business model and her offers and her pricing. But what this came up against was she had some judgments. She grew up poor and she had some judgments against people who charge a lot of money for things. She had some judgments against people who had a lot of money, right? Where she thought people who had a lot of money were selfish and greedy fuckbags. And like, she thought if she was to charge enough money to live and eat food, that she was going to alienate her people, right? And so this judgment was very real to her, and it would cause her to undercharge. It would cause her to over deliver. It would cause her to not be as successful as she could be, right? And I'm like, and when we really think about it, if she was to keep going on that path, her entire body of work would never exist because she'd have to get a job. And there's nothing wrong with having a job. I'm just saying. So that judgment, that's like a mental structure on good and bad and right and wrong and how to behave. We had to break that down. When we did break it down, she went from making $1,000 a month. Our first month working together, she made 5,300, and she'd done six figures by the end of our year together. All right, I want to let that land because she was doing the work already. She was already working hard enough. It wasn't about that. She was already showing up good enough. She was already selling good enough. It was that her mind wouldn't let her have the success that she wanted. Now, the last place to observe in the subconscious mind is for unprocessed feelings. This is interesting because we actually need to learn how to bring the mind into the body to be able to do this. But a lot of times when it comes to getting stuck in business, there is fear of sensation that's really at the root. So it could be like, oh, I'm afraid of being judged, or I'm afraid of being criticized, or I'm afraid of being rejected, or afraid of being canceled, or afraid of a bad business partner, or whatever else. And most of the time, these things are actually, they're not physical fears. There's no danger that we think we're up against is sensation, right? Like rejected will hurt your feelings. It's going to feel bad for a minute, but it's not inherently dangerous, right? If you make your phone calls and you're doing your work and you're, oh, I hit my microphone. That's I got distracted. Sorry. Like it's just that sometimes we have to learn how to feel the unprocessed feelings and then move through them, which we're not going to get too far into today because that's the mind and the emotions. They're kind of like this. You can talk about them like they're separate, but in real life they're really closely integrated. So when we think about the observation of the subconscious mind, we want to be able to look at our past stories for meanings. And if those meanings are still coming up, we want to look at our social conditionings, we want to look at our judgments, and we want to look at our unprocessed feelings. And so of these things, I just want to point out that one of them would be limiting beliefs, right? So the past stories with the meaning is limiting beliefs. And then the other three things are really other things. And this, again, I just want to come back to when I watch people pour too much energy into their mind and waste a lot of time, they're generally just looking for limiting beliefs. And they go looking for problems until they find them. And when you find them, then you're right. And then you believe that, oh, there's a problem in my mind. Let me go digging around again. Let me go digging around again. And I've certainly made this mistake on my, I have certainly done this to myself, and it does not make any more money. It doesn't make your business grow faster. And the idea that you're going to have a super perfect, spotless mind is unrealistic. All right. So this is the skill of observation. So I gave you the three different levels, and I gave you what we need to be looking for to have the skill of observation. All right. Now, the next thing that we want to have power in our mind, right? So once we can see our minds, this gives us the ability to choose. Right? Before you can see your mind, you're going to not really have the wherewithal to choose your thoughts because you're just in them, right? You're just in your thoughts. When you're outside of your thoughts and you're observing your thoughts, or you can even be observing yourself, observing your thoughts. This is a fascinating little game of consciousness to play. From there, we have the ability to choose. All right. So thoughts are magnetic to thoughts like them, right? So if you were to go down one of your current rabbit holes, right? Like your mind has a little rabbit hole. I'm going to use a scarcity rabbit hole because I feel like almost everybody's got a scarcity rabbit hole. So I think this should land for you guys. So if your scarcity rabbit hole goes something like, I'm not going to have enough money for it doesn't matter for whatever, or and then it goes into the pressure, it goes into the limitation, it goes into whatever. And some people will land their rabbit hole. Well, I'm just going to have to move to a van down by the river, or I'm going to have to close my business, or I'm going to have to do, whatever, like wherever the rabbit hole goes. Right. So those thoughts are magnetic to each other. So if you think one thought that's scarcity, another thought of scarcity is very likely going to magnetize there if you're not paying attention, if you're not actively choosing, because thoughts have their own magnetism, right? So it's like the mental version of law of attraction. So if you have this thought, the thought that's of the same flavor, another thought of the same flavor is going to happen. All right. So, and if we have positive thoughts, if we think, oh, this is going to be so great, everything's going to work out, it's going to happen faster than I expected, it's going to be so much fun, you'll find that the thoughts again will magnetize. So what does it mean to choose a thought? So as you're watching your thoughts go by, you can watch how your mind might choose to engage with that thought. Now, I'm sure we've all done this where you can also choose to disengage with a thought. So the choice works to either choose to engage or choose to disengage. So if you've ever had a thought and you're like, oh, I can't deal with that right now, like back to doing the dishes. This is what I'm talking about. Or like when you're like, no, mind, like don't bring that up right now. We're doing work. That's the ability to choose a thought. So we want the ability to choose thoughts that are in the direction of where we're going, the flavor of the experience that we're trying to create. And we want the ability to drop a thought that's either bothering us or just negative in an unhelpful direction. And then we need the ability to drop and redirect. So we need to basically choose to discipline the mind out of the rabbit holes. So when your mind is going to be like, oh, you're moving to a van down by the river, you're going to say, no, I'm choosing to let that thought go. And I'm choosing to know that I have all the skills that I need to make my business work. I'm choosing to know that I am smart enough, that I have an email list, that I have a presence online, right? And you just kind of start to build a case around something otherwise. So in the last week's class, I actually gave a whole technique on anchor thoughts. And so if you want, you can go back and watch that whole video about anchor thought. Well, the whole thing wasn't just about anchor thoughts, but it was about overcoming fear and doubt, right? And so we go over the anchor thoughts. And so that's on my YouTube channel. So if you want to see a whole video, and that goes deeper into anchor thoughts. But the ability to drop and redirect, this is like the meat and potatoes of the disciplining of the mind. And I'm just going to set some expectations here for you guys, because the mind is constantly going and there's always thoughts in there. You may need to drop a thought and redirect, if you're brand new to this, 100 times a day. Every time you do it, it costs a little glucose. If you keep doing it, you'll find that it's a little mentally tiring. All right. And I just want to point that out, because sometimes people are like, I directed my thought and it came back. And I'm like, yeah, it's going to probably do that. Yeah. So this is where the discipline comes in. And I just want you to be gentle with yourself here. And I want you to kind of think about, like, if you are training a seeing eye dog, right? You take this little puppy that has the potential to do all of this work, right? Like, there's a really big difference between an untrained little, what is it, a golden retriever, those little golden dogs, right? And a seeing eye dog. So you're trying to get your mind to basically serve you. It's to be in service. The level of training that those little dogs do is wild. They do a lot of training. It's a lot of training. It's not just sit and stay still, or, do the thing where the dog holds your hand. We're not doing that. We're like, you're going to cross the road. You're going to get me my medicine. You're going to do these other things. So when you want a high level of control over your mind, the discipline, you just have to be patient with yourself and just kindly redirect and kindly redirect. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. And at some point you'll notice, oh, I only had to redirect my thoughts 12 times today. And then I only had to redirect my thoughts 10 times. And I'll tell you, my mind is pretty well disciplined and I still redirect many times a day. All right. So I just want to set that as a realistic expectation, because again, I think sometimes people think that, like, if you have a really great coach, or if you're doing the work, that somehow that you should like be free of all problems, right? And so I just want to set the reasonable expectations for that. And so that way also you know that there's nothing wrong with you. Because this is like, again, it's like sometimes I feel like people just want to believe that there's something wrong with them. And I'm like, nah, man. The mind is just an unruly little wild fucking beast, and you gotta keep training it. And that's it. I spilled water on my shirt and my boob. I have food on my boob every day of my life. All right. So the third bit of the third skill that I'm going to teach you today is really around the creation of an experience. All right. So the first place to get started with this, like the beginner level of this, would be to direct your thoughts on purpose to create an experience in your body. Now, the simplest one to do, like if you've never, if you're just learning the art of mental discipline, this is going to be something like a gratitude list. A gratitude list. What you're going to do there, so when you grab your journal and you write your gratitudes, what's really happening is you're taking control of your mind for that period of time, and you're choosing what thoughts to think on purpose, right? Because your mind wasn't naturally going to go there. You're leading your mind. So you're saying, find me the things I'm grateful for. Go looking. Go search for this. So you're taking command of your mind. And when you stay with that long enough to create a different feeling in your body, now you've gone so far with that is that you've created an experience. And then experience is a vibe, a vibration, right? So people will sometimes ask me, how do I raise my vibration? Well, you think thoughts of that vibration. This is how you do it. And so this is how you move through energetic space. Now, it's not physical space. You're going to sit there just like a bump on a log doing your journal. So physically, you're going to be in the same space, but your energy is going to be moving. Your mind is going to be moving through the mental, through the ether. And your energy is going to start to match, and you're going to feel that in your body. All right. So that's the way that process goes. All right. So, and you can do this for gratitude, abundance, love, happiness, joy, reasons your spouse is annoying, reasons your kids are annoying, reasons your neighbor's dog is terrible, right? And a lot of times we use our mind to create a state that feels bad, right? If you were to think about every single sweet thing your lover, past lover has done for you, you're probably going to feel real good. If you think about every time they annoyed you, probably going to feel real bad. All right. So this is about choosing our experience, right? And so this is at the beginner level, but this is a little bit more advanced. This is the beginner level of a more advanced skill, right? So that's the first way. So you learn to direct your thoughts. And this will be most of the time when you're learning how to do this, you're going to want to do it for one note. I call it one note, right? So one note gratitude, one note abundance. And what this gives you when you do it for one note is the ability to feel that vibration in your body, because then you're also you're teaching your body how to read for vibration, how to pick up a vibe, how to read your own energy level. So that way, sometime down the road, you are like, oh, I feel weird. I feel shamey today. What's that about? But you can place it really, really quickly. And this gives you the ability. This is why these skills all build on each other. And this is when you can do this stuff real fast in your business, and these weird energies don't get into your actions, they don't get into your words, they don't get into your decision making, you can grow your business so fucking fast when you don't get in your own way, or when you're like, oh, I feel a little off. And I'm talking like, it's almost like taking a little tiny pebble out of your shoe. Like, it's no big deal. But if you walk all day with a pebble in your shoe, now your foot is injured. You guys see that this is a little weird metaphor, but I hope everybody's tracking with me. Okay. So that's the beginner level of the how to use your mind for creative powers. All right. So the next level on how to use your mind for creative powers is less about just noticing, right? So we're taking, when the first thing we're taking experiences that you already know, that you have already had, right? And now we're going to start to create experiences you've never had. So this is harder. This is a more advanced skill. So the first thing we want to do is gather the ideas of the desire. What do I want? How do I want it to look? How do I want it to feel? How do I want to get there? What kind of work do I want to be doing? How much money do I want to make? What would I do with the money? How many employees do I want to have? What do I want my culture, my company to be? You start to gather the ideas of the desire. And for many of us, this is not a super fast process. A lot of times we got to feel into it. We got to take a little action. But this is it. So then we learn how to bring those ideas to life in the mind. So if you've studied manifestation, you've heard doing your visualizations, doing your things. Now, what I suggest for bringing ideas to life in the mind, it depends. This is a place where you have to really get to know how your mind works. So listen, I know some people, I'm sure some of you here are probably great visualizers. Is anybody here a great visualizer? You could change the color of my shirt in your mind, like just like that, no big deal. So for you guys, doing this visually may be the case. I'll tell you, my mind doesn't really work in pictures. My intuition works in pictures, but I can hardly ever get my mind to imagine something like that. But my mind works in stories. My mind can work in smells. I can imagine what something would smell like. I can imagine what something would feel like. I can imagine the sounds of something, but somehow the pictures never exactly work for me. So each of us has each of our imaginations. So now we're looking to learn how to create with our imagination. They all operate a little differently. And so this is just a place for you to get to know yourself. It's not, I don't know, for a long time, I was like trying to get my mind to be more visual, right? Because I was like, oh, everything requires visualization. There's something wrong with me. Let me learn how to do it. And it's like, I have a great imagination. It just works more auditorily than visually. So great. So I write stories where Kathy said she might be able to just sit and just like see a picture. I'm going to write a story. All right. So we get these ideas to come to life in our mind, and then they can start to come to life in the body. So again, what we're doing here is we're creating a vibrational experience. We're getting to be in that experience before that experience has come. But this is the essence of manifestation. This is like the essence of manifestation. So if you've been trying to like manifest, this is what we literally need to do. And we have to be really cautious to create the experience that we want to have and be in the experience of having that and not in the experience of wanting it, right? Because if we want, let's say you're manifesting business success, lots of money, right? If I'm in the experience of wanting money, or if I'm in the thought pattern of wanting money, if I'm using my money or my mind to be like, I want money, I desire money, what does that mean from an experience standpoint? Well, that word matches the experience of I don't have money or I don't have enough money. Right. So we have to make sure that we're creating the experience that we want. So we have to think about it from an experience level. So if I want a lot of money, then I'm going to use my mind to create the picture of me already having the money, already having the success, because then I have the vibe of that. The vibe of wanting success and not having success is different than the vibe of having success and having money. They're two different experiences. They're two different vibrations. Right. Now, part of why this matters so much is that because also as we grow and expand, we need to get our body more and more on board with the neurochemical cocktails that come with feeling real good. Right. And I'm going to say this. And if you need to know more on this subject, there's a book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And he talks a lot about it. But a lot of times when we're moving vibrationally, mentally, energetically into success, our body still needs to catch up with that. And so when we start having a life that's very different, the neurochemical cocktails that we get are very different. And if your body's not used to that, your body gets a little tight, a little nervous, and this is the place where self-sabotage comes in. So when we can start to create these experiences in our body, when nothing has changed in real life, we start to get our body more and more used to the idea of feeling good. Right? Because for lots of us, like I'll give you guys an example. So my life when I grew up, my childhood, there was a lot of chaos. My parents got divorced. There was some moving. Money was up and down. I was raised by my single dad who got a drinking problem in the 80s. I have two brothers, right? And so there was a lot of chaos, So until I learned how to be with this kind of technique, when my life would feel too stable, when my life would feel too steady, do you know what I would do? I would set fire to the curtains of my life, metaphorically, never like with actual matches. But I would fuck shit up. I would take apart pieces of my business. I would just cause chaos, because I couldn't handle the feeling of stability. I couldn't handle it. When it felt stable, it would feel dangerous to me because I was so unused to that feeling. All right. Let me know if this lands. Is this landing for you guys? Okay, so this is, no, so we want to create those experiences. All right, so again, the beginner level is going to be really learning how to read the vibe, really learning how to direct the mind, really teaching the mind how to go get thoughts from the ether, right? So this is level one. Level two is starting to gather those ideas and create like a vignette of an experience. And then number three is to really be with that mental experience long enough to have it as an experience in the body. All right. All right. Now, one more thing I want to say here is when I'm working with my clients, there's a lot of more mental skills, but today we're doing three. Like one of some of the three biggest, most awesome, most powerful. And I hope that I broke these down for you guys in a way that is really, really like easy to understand and makes things like, nice and digestible. All right. Oh, Kathy says super helpful. All right. Oh, the last thing I want to talk to you about. So I have a retreat that's coming up. So we are going to Costa Rica, January, 5th, 6th. Fuck. Sorry, Ash. I don't remember. You're gonna have to help me out. 5th or 6th. It's a few days of retreat. Actually, Ash will put I don't actually remember the details. I know what I'm teaching. I'm gonna be teaching a lot of mental skills around this. So there are a few spots that are still open. And so if you want to work together and you want to meet me in person, you want to go to Costa Rica, we're going to be in Tamarindo. We're going to go do cool things. We're going to have a private chef. We have a luxury villa. It's going to be real good. So if you want to learn how to work with like, you know, breaking conditionings in your mind, then you want to really learn how to work with your mind as like a tool for wealth expansion, then you could check that out. All right, so this is the end of my presentation. All right, ladies, I love the shit out of you. Next week we will be switching to Tuesdays. We're going to be doing these calls on Tuesdays. Noon 30. Fuck. Well, anyways, you'll have to watch your emails. I love you so much. I will see you then, and that's it. Bye, everybody.